Dr. Thakur is a senior pharmaceutical physician renowned for his extensive contribution in clinical research in academia as well as the industry. We are very much thankful to you, Dr. Saket, for joining us in this episode.
So thank you for your introduction, Dr. Paritosh, and it's a privilege to be part of this discussion.
Thank you so much, sir, for coming to this platform and taking this extra step to further discuss with us and answer all the questions that we have. To start with the first question, which is, what is the role of physicians in clinical research?
Okay, yeah. So physicians essentially play a pivotal role in clinical research. The reason being their medical training. So since they are medically trained, they can contribute with great deal to the science. As we all know that clinical research is a very broad, field. It not only includes clinical trial, but also includes preventive research, screening, diagnostics, and then the quality of life research. And now there is a buzz of real world evidence, what we call as a new age research, which we now do post approval of any drug. So not only say clinical trials, but since physicians are trained in the various, they're medically trained in various therapy area knowledge, they can contribute significantly to all these domains of clinical research. Moreover, uh, with this COVID-19 pandemic, the research has become a buzzword in all the households, and we see a lot of new research being done in vaccines. Even generic companies, Indian generic companies, are contributing significantly to development of the subsequent versions of the innovator products. So not only innovator companies, the physicians can contribute to generic drug development, vaccines, medical devices also an uncharted territory where we can play a significant role in clinical development, clinical research. So yes, we have a very, very broad role and to play in clinical research, and the prime thing which is our medical training.
Another question, just to continue the previous question itself, is that how do you differentiate the role into clinical development, or what's the difference in role of a physician as compared to a researcher into clinical research?
Yeah, so it's a nice, I mean, so in industry, if you see a person with a background in PhD and a person with a medical background, of course, they are part of the same clinical development team. So
Right.
a person with PhD background could be the part of the development team where she or he supports the clinical trial physician,
Mhm.
or say a clinical research director. So a clinical research director or a medically qualified person is essentially the person who is responsible for the program. Could
Okay.
be a clinical trial or of a pharmaceutical product or a vaccine or a medical device. So she or he takes the medical decision on the protocol. Uh, Certainly, he or she will be supported by the PhD person, who
Mhm.
could be a clinical scientist or senior clinical scientist, uh, which takes the crafting or drafting of the protocol. They support the preparation of the dossiers to be submitted to the regulatory or agencies. If a person is having a PhD in say biomarker, then definitely a PhD person could be part of the biomarker strategy. Then they could be the leader of those biomarker or companion diagnostic strategies. So yes, essentially being a physician gives them the say lead position in the uh, clinical trial protocol, where she or he would make the medical decisions on the eligibility or consideration of the patients, the interventions, the protocol deviations. So
Right.
all the medical decisions are the responsibility for clinical trial physician, where all the scientific or medical writing or uh, say supporting work uh, of a protocol will be managed by a PhD person. But there are some niche role crafted for a PhD person, as I said, that biomarker team lead or a translational lead would be, or clinical scientist, senior clinical scientist are being done by the PhD person.
Right, right. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for taking up that question. The next question is, how does the scope vary for BDS, MDS, MBBS, MD, or DM? You being a DM yourself, and you might have colleagues, or you might have associates who are from different backgrounds, from other allied medical or mainstream medical field. So how is it different for each of them?
Okay, yeah, that's a very pertinent question, because the scope of work would vary a bit between a person with different qualification. Essentially, what governs the choice, I mean, the role which a person would play is the skill sets. So, a medically trained person would have a medical knowledge about the disease and therapy area landscape. So an MBBS person, MBBS in India is a basic medical degree. If you compare
Mhm.
with the Western world, in US especially, MD is the basic degree which a
Right.
person holds and then builds upon their career with various therapeutic areas, say internal medicine, pediatrics, or other board certified courses or specialties. In India, MBBS is a basic degree, so an MBBS person would have a basic knowledge about the disease and therapy area. What they don't have is the depth of the clinical research or clinical development, because they are very naive to research. So an MBBS person, if they uh, want to pursue their career in India, the scope is very limited. They have to start with potentially a coordinator position, or they have to participate in some sort of clinical research to be entering eligible to enter in the industry. They can certainly pursue a postgraduate or a diploma in clinical research being offered by various agencies, or they could continue in the bigger institutions where they do some clinical programs, and they could just enter the industry and they could start uh, do some work. They could also join some CRO, contract research organizations, and contribute to some bioavailability, bioequivalence study as a study physician,
Mhm.
investigator, and then start on building career from there based on. So essentially, it starts with the development of various skill sets which are required for you to work in the clinical research. Then there is the sky is the limit, because once you start accumulating the skill sets, then the next job is based on what you acquire in your previous career. Likewise for an BDS or MDS, since they don't have a medical degree, the scope becomes very limited in clinical research, because if you want to work in, say, clinical trial protocols or on oral therapy, or say dentistry, or devices like implants or uh, periodontal diseases, and they are the expert actually, then
Right.
they could be medical monitors for those programs.
Mhm.
But for pharmaceutical development, since they don't have medical degree, and as per ICH GCP, the program has to be overseen by a medically qualified person. So there the scope becomes narrower for them in a proper clinical development. Having said that, if they acquire some skill sets such as medical writing, or say regulatory affairs or pharmacovigilance, then certainly they could aid the clinical development by being the support staff. So clinical development essentially is a cartwheel. So it is supported by various spokes, like pharmacovigilance, medical writing, pharmacokinetic people, statistics. So all these functions would make a clinical development program a success. So being a BDS or master in dental sciences, they could support this activity with a great zeal. So essentially, it revolves around the skill sets what you acquire. And yes, MD in India is a post graduation, and majority of the MD in India are from a pharmacology background, which is unlike to the West once again, because there a physician with various specialty training like pulmonology, oncology, infectious diseases, immunologists, all contribute to drug development. Whereas in India, majority of the drug development is contributed by pharmacologists. With MD in pharmacology, yes, you have an additional advantage because you know pharmacology well, you know the principles of drug development well, and plus you are medically qualified. So that's an advantage being a pharmacologist in drug development industry. So yes, with an MD in pharmacology, if you want to start a career, you could join a clinical research company organization, being a
Mhm.
pharma company or a CRO. You could start as a medical monitor or a clinical trial physician or clinical research manager or clinical research medical advisor, whatever the qualifications may be or designations may be. You could start working in a clinical development program, acquire the skill sets, and go further
Right, right.
in the ladder. Being
Mhm.
a DM, yes, because DM itself is a established qualification in India with the uh, approval from an MCI. So we have a set curriculum in DM, which is rated as postdoctorate in the Western world. So yes, there is a vast curriculum which a person has to cover to acquire DM qualification. So an MD pass out uh, and a DM passed out candidates, the difference would be in the skill sets. A DM person would have acquired some additional skill sets, and that could increase their employability or in the pharma industry, as what I have experienced personally. Because I being an MD and I being a DM, the skill sets were significantly different, and that could enhance my employability in the industry.
Right. Great. So since you brought this, word, the skill set, so why don't we just have a brief overview on what all are the soft skills or the, hard skills that people need to do? I mean, apart from having a DM or the MD people who are already, well versed with the pharma industry and all. So what additionally can people who have done bachelor's in dentistry or bachelor's in medicine can do to increase the likeliness of getting into the industry and getting an offer actually?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so skill sets is something which I mean industry revolves around, and it is across all roles and all job profiles. So skill sets is the primary requirement which would increase your employability. So as a physician or as a bachelor's in dentistry or master's in dentistry, the basic or the foundation would be your therapy area training. So your medicine knowledge of the medicine therapy area knowledge about the disease, epidemiology, pathophysiology. You have to understand the disease and therapy area with very, very, very much depth, because your depth of knowledge will help the clinical trial program and achieving its success. So therapy area knowledge and a disease knowledge is the foundation. Then next important is the foundation of the drug development. So research designs, GCP, fundamentals of clinical research. That is the next possible step. And of course about the molecule. So fundamentals of pharmacology of a molecule, mechanism of action, basics of pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics, how your molecule works, how it compares with the competitors. So that's also an additional requirement, a skill set. So pharmacokinetics dynamics is something which is an add-on uh, for the clinical research program. The next important component is a working knowledge of statistics, biostatistics, not advanced like Bayesian statistics is not a requirement, but yes, working knowledge of statistics is something which is very helpful, because as a clinical trial physician or medical monitor, you have to talk to the investigators, you have to talk to uh, uh, the health authorities while explaining them the protocol. So working knowledge of statistics is something which is very required, and you have to acquire that skill. There is no escape from that. Statistics is a very fearful term for any medical person, but yes, we have to live with it because this is something which we cannot escape. And fourth is medical writing, I would say. Medical writing is something which is very important. You have to communicate scientifically with various stakeholders. You have to write protocols. You have to design ICDs. You have to create CRF. Uh, and you have to also write some scientific advice documents like briefing books, spatial protocol assessment, control correspondence. So yeah, something which is very critical for us to develop is medical writing skills. So these are the hard skill which I talked about. The soft skill is something which is very important is communication. your way of communication, non-authoritative persuasion, I would say, because clinical research is a matrix role. I would say you have to interact with pharmacovigilance, you have to interact with regulatory team, you have to interact with medical affairs, investigators, ethics committees, health authorities. So it's a very diverse role, and a person in clinical research is has to have a very good communication, soft skills, persuading investigators, non-authoritative persuasion, how you meet your deadlines, how you meet your recruitment targets, how you explain your eligibility criteria, and how you put your point across the investigator so that it becomes appealing, the research becomes appealing to for them for participation. Yes, yes. So we cannot escape from that. And with this virtual world and all this remote work, communication has taken a next step, I would say, because
Right.
now our physical contacts are going to be minimal and all will be digital. So yes, we have to be acquainted with these new skills in communications.
Right, right. Thank you, doctor. I think that's very beautifully contemplated, and I think all the factors and points were very beautifully placed. The next question is around the verticals. What are some verticals, and how is the career transition? And specifically, just one more question adding to it, that suppose a seasoned professional like you who has 10 years 10 plus years of experience into pharma or into clinical trials, so you want to maybe move into business or into marketing or any other function which is not clinical trial. Or suppose if somebody has been working into medical affairs and he wants to move out, so what's the right time to move out of it? And yeah, and the previous question again, that what are the verticals into clinical trials?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a very important question because so if I first explain the career transition in clinical research, so the entry level position or entry level could be a medical monitor or a clinical research medical advisor or scientist, given a designation where a person would be overseeing a protocol and primarily medically responsible for that protocol. The next level for that person to move in clinical research could be and which is the immediate transition would be say clinical development. So she or he could be a clinical scientist where he could support a clinical trial lead physician of that protocol in terms of say they writing the material study material such as protocol, designing the ICD CRF, organizing the DSMB meetings, talking to the investigators, training the study team members, and then slowly move upwards, he or she being the sole clinical trial leader or medical lead for the program. Then further upwards could be she or he could be clinical lead for the various programs in for that molecule, all the programs for that molecule, and then the next transition could be the life cycle leader for that product or the global project head for a particular therapeutic area. So that's a the seamless transition in clinical research to clinical development. The lateral moves are also possible. A person with clinical research, say, could move to medical affairs. But yes, as I again say that the skill sets has to be very important. So she or he has to be acquainted with those skill sets. So medical affairs movement is also possible. Depends on she or he has to identify certain rules in the organization. If a preceptorship is required in medical affairs or say some as an individual development program, a person has to spend some time in medical affairs to gain those skills like preparation of the medical plans, reviewing the promotional literature, development of the training materials to the field force, or whatever as part of the job description. Then yes, that is possible. Pharmacovigilance could be another lateral movement there. It's possible. Business is also a possibility if a person has interacted with business functions. I myself had an opportunity to work with various business teams in my all the roles, I would say. So
Okay.
yes, business. If a person has a good business acumen, he understands the market, and has acquired some skill sets to prepare the business cases for the product, calculate the NPVs and baselines, and if he has those skills, and it is also her or his aspiration to move into business, then yes, business could be a good opportunity for them. And another, I would say, regulatory affairs is also an uncharted territory. A physician in global development, being the uh, acquainted with the knowledge of global regulations, regulatory affairs could also be one of the options where she or he can try as a next career. So eventually, everything is up to a person's interest, where she or he would like to see themselves in 5 or 10 years down the line, and where he could build his career further upon. Next answer for your question would be, what could be the transition point? So, to my personal experience, when a person gains a knowledge about the industry, it takes around 5 years, 4 to 5 years time, where you understand the whole business, pharma business. It's around for 4 to 5 years.
Okay.
And once she or he understands the business, pharma business, drug
Mhm.
development, and then wants where he wants to see herself or himself in the future, that's the time where she or he could make a move. It's not difficult to make lateral moves in pharma company,
Mhm.
because the industry is very open and open to receive the talents. So the movements are not difficult when a person is ready to make a move, and there are open positions and he has those in his or her CV, then certainly the movements are easier.
Right, right. So thank you so much for taking up all the questions. I think there are few more questions, but most of them would be covered in what already you have said, and because your answers were very exhaustive as well. So thank you for that. Maybe we can just end this session with one question. That what are some additional qualifications that a clinical research professional can pursue for career progression? So I think this question will help a lot, many people. And apart from the skill sets that we talked about, and you have already very beautifully answered that. So what all, in terms of qualification, should qualification not be a barrier going ahead? So what's, learnings or what degrees or something that people can pursue to, go ahead into clinical trials and not, being rejected out of a maybe interview, or maybe not finding all the skills that they need, even when they are working, right?
Yes, yes. So yeah, so it depends on your career interest. So where you want to move next is something which will determine the requirement of the next qualification. And I would say, if a person could try any position. So if a person would like to venture into medical affairs, maybe she or he would be liking them to get board certified medical affairs professional. So BCMS or any other accreditation
Right.
which will give them that essential skill sets, could be the entry point for them into medical affairs. Or if a person would like to venture into pharmacovigilance, then a certificate course in pharmacovigilance or something of that sort could help them venturing into the pharmacovigilance. Likewise, regulatory affairs or something like that. Interestingly, I found a couple of my colleagues pursuing data science, and they took some courses in data science, so PG diploma in data science, or a course in R, Python, or basics of data science, machine learning. So if a person is interested in data, and is she or he is good with the data, and want to get into real world evidence and data analysis, data analytics, data science, then they could do some PG diploma in data science, and that could help them move further into the career development. Likewise, if you ask that if a person wants to go into business, then they could join a part-time MBA. Then that could be helping them into going into business. Couple of my colleagues are
Mhm.
medically trained, and they are medically qualified, but they are MBA. They are doing well in the business. They are enjoying a leadership role in the business. So yes, and I personally wanted to move into clinical development, global clinical development. So there are some programs, say uh, masters in pharmaceutical medicine and diploma in pharmaceutical medicine.
Right.
So they are being offered by premier institution globally. So yes,
Mhm.
if a person wants to go out globally and look out for those roles, they can do uh, this diploma or masters in pharmaceutical medicine from those premier institutes. So when you acquire those additional certificates, it builds your CV and increases your employability. And yes, you have to keep on trying to enhance your skill sets, which make you ready for the next role.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, it totally makes sense. Once you have a, great in-depth knowledge of the industry, how the pharma industry works, having a MD degree or maybe having MBBS or whatever degree you have, and once you have, experienced through working for a while, and then maybe the next step would be to get into MBA if you choose to be on the business side and actually, level up in terms of your business acumen. And the I think it was pharmaceutical medicine, masters in pharmaceutical medicine. Even I have seen so many people, particularly those who are working in Pfizer, they have done their masters in pharmaceutical medicine from colleges like Hibernia, I think it's
Hibernia College.
right. So
Yes.
that's very common, which I frequently see in the profiles. Also in India, I think Maharashtra University of Health Sciences also is
Yes.
providing masters in
Yes.
pharmaceutical medicine. And you, I guess, also have done the same on top of your
Yeah.
DM in pharmacology.
Yeah. So, yeah, there are some of the big institutions which offer pharmaceutical medicine.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I pursued with the Royal College of Physicians, UK. So it depends. I mean, the program which suits you and is convenient for you, and which will help you building your skill sets. That you could choose any of the program. Dedicate your time in acquiring those knowledge. Essentially, it improves your knowledge, your skills. I could see a significant change in myself after I pursued those qualifications. So,
Mhm.
which is with any qualification, because when you go through a structured training part with evaluation, it really helps a lot. So, essentially, what is paramount is structured learning, which sometimes I personally feel that on the job training doesn't give you that structured training, because I myself is a person who wants to be part of a mold. If you give me some liberty, then I could out and I could find my way out of that mold. So since you join those courses, professional courses, pay for them, dedicate some time, and are going to be evaluated through that process, then certainly it helps a lot, because it's part of a structured training. So essentially, structured training is something which I personally recommend to any person who wants to move further in the career.
Right, right. So just one final question, because that is coming from all the answers that you are giving already. So suppose if somebody is a graduate in medicine or dentistry and he wants to get into clinical trials or medical affairs, what degree would you rather recommend to him or her? Is it MPH, or would you rather recommend him into a PhD into life sciences, or maybe would you recommend them to undergo this master's in pharmaceutical medicine?
See, it depends. So it depends on the person's interest. So and yes, the amount of time she or he wants to invest. So PhD is a long process, I would say, because it would take around 5 to 7 years. It depends where you want to do. Yes, a PhD is a good thing to have, because it gives you a in-depth knowledge of the science. You would know medical writing, you would know research, because some of the global qualifications, if you see, they require some lab experience,
Exactly.
and that's a mandatory requirement. So if you don't have a lab experience, that would reduce your points. So if you want to would like to work in the lab, then PhD certainly is helpful. I personally have spent a lot of time in labs, so and clinics also. So I have a dual advantage, because I personally enjoy working in lab, and I also enjoy working in clinic. So if a person is a lab oriented person, then PhD is for them.
Mhm.
and from there they could write the thesis, publish lot. They could see themselves in the literature. So yes, PhD is one of the option. If your time horizon is short, you would like to quickly enter into the pharma industry, then masters in pharmaceutical science or diploma in pharmaceutical science could be another option for you to enter.
Right.
And yes, if you want to pursue your career in epidemiology or real world evidence, and become a leader of epidemiology of one of the larger companies, then certainly MPH is an option. Because nowadays each company, I'm talking about a major pharma majors, they have dedicated epidemiology departments in their clinical development team as part of the life cycle management. So yes, an epidemiologist or a person with MPH qualification play a major role in life cycle management of a pharmaceutical product. So they being the leader of their epidemiology team, they govern the and they lead the post-approval strategy of any products, data generation in post-marketing settings. Some of the MPH colleagues of mine are doing phenomenal work in real-world evidence, and they are authoring the post-approval safety study. What we abbreviated is PASS, Pass Studies Protocol, PAES protocols, and they lead these programs for EMEA and FDA. So yes, it depends on person's time horizon and willingness to invest their time in their career. They could choose either of this path, and each one is rewarding. Maybe not in a shorter term, but maybe on a longer term. Each is rewarding themselves in their capacities.
Right, right. I think that's a very wonderful session and very beautifully wrapped up all the questions and answers together. And I do understand that it's a weekday, and still you were able to find time for us. Thank you so much. Our entire team is obliged for that. So thank you, and I hope we keep connecting. And a
Yes.
very good day, good evening, and good day to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's I mean, likewise, I feel fortunate and privileged to be part of this good discussion forum, and I hope to see meaningful change in my colleagues or fellow colleagues' careers. And I personally would like to grow further. Anyone of us would like to grow and gain from others' experience, and peer-to-peer experience sharing helps a lot. I personally have gained a lot by interacting with my peers. So yes, it's a very great initiative, and hope it changes. It would bring change to many of the lives careers for our colleagues.
Well, thank you so much, sir. The pleasure is ours. Uh, have a good day, and I hope you keep well into this pandemic and stay safe, sir.